Welcome to SOS Media, your number one source of the latest news, opinions, and in-depth investigations that dig deeper into today's developing stories around the globe. The United States has specific laws protecting workers from being forced to work against their will, ensuring workers are treated fairly and their fundamental basic human rights are not violated. Title 18 of the United States Code Section 1589 makes it a federal crime to knowingly provide or obtain the labor or services of a person using force, threats of force, physical restraint or fraud, otherwise known simply as forced labor. If you are accused of forcing someone to work for you, or if you are accused of helping someone else force someone to work for them, say like trafficking labor, you could be charged with the crime of forced labor under USC 1589. Forced labor remains a form of slavery and human trafficking in which victims are coerced into performing labor or services against their will. This can include physical labor, intimate involvement, exploitation, domestic servitude, or other types of work. Victims of forced labor may be held against their will by force, deception, the threat of violence, or nonviolent forms of harm. They may also be lured into situations where they cannot leave by false promises of better working or living conditions. Furthermore, individual states often have their own laws addressing human trafficking and forced labor, complementing federal efforts and providing additional protections for victims. These laws are enforced by various federal agencies including the Department of Justice, the Department of Labor, and the Department of Homeland Security alongside state and local authorities. Robert Sylvester Kelly, the Rand B. King, also known as R. Kelly, was convicted by a federal jury in Brooklyn of all 9 counts of a superseding indictment charging him with racketeering, predicated on criminal conduct including exploitation of children, forced labor, and Mann Act violations. These violations allegedly involve the coercion and transportation of women and girls in interstate commerce to engage in illegal activity. The verdict followed 6 weeks of trial before United States District Judge Ann Donnelly. One of Jennifer Bonjean's argument in a bid to overturn R. Kelly's alleged forced labor charges has majorly involved the contesting of the elements of the offense. To secure a conviction for forced labor, the government must have proved beyond a reasonable doubt that R. Kelly knowingly engaged in conduct that involved obtaining labor or services through force, threats, coercion, or fraud. Bonjean has already challenged the sufficiency of the evidence presented by the government, correctly and genuinely arguing that there is insufficient proof of force, coercion, or fraudulent inducement. Here in the United States, forced labor is defined as a serious violation of federal law under the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, alongside various state statutes. According to the TVPA law, forced labor encompasses several key elements. Firstly, it involves the use of coercion or threats, whether physical or psychological, to compel an individual to work against their will. This coercion can take various forms, including forceful confinement or threats of harm to the individual or their loved ones. Secondly, forced labor encompasses involuntary servitude, where individuals are made to believe that if they do not perform certain labor or services, they or others will suffer serious harm or financial loss. This can involve the imposition of work through schemes or patterns designed to instill fear and compliance. It is on record that most of R. Kelly's former girlfriends said they voluntarily made personal decisions to stay with him and were also free to leave if they so wished. It is actually true that even when R. Kelly was in prison, Joycelyn Savage and Azriel Clary stayed loyal to him, living in his apartment at the Trump Towers. Additionally, forced labor includes the practice of debt bondage, where individuals are forced to work to pay off a debt or other obligation. This form of exploitation often traps individuals in a cycle of servitude, as the debt is manipulated to keep them under control. Among all the alleged victims, none claimed to have had a debt obligation with R. Kelly. Crucially, forced labor hinges on the absence of consent from the individual performing the labor or services. This means that if someone is compelled to work against their will, regardless of the circumstances, it constitutes forced labor. Prosecution for forced labor entails demonstrating that the accused individuals engaged in actions or schemes that meet one or more of these criteria. It requires evidence showing that the victims were subjected to coercion, threats, or other forms of compulsion, and that they did not freely consent to the labor or services they were made to perform. Prosecuting a single act of forced labor requires thorough investigation and evidence gathering to establish the elements of coercion, lack of consent and involuntary servitude. It is very unfortunate that all the government is relying on is the testimonies from the alleged victims, which one would be right to refer to as mere hearsay. One significant limitation of witness testimonies is the fallibility of human memory. Memory is prone to errors, distortions and omissions, leading witnesses to forget details, confuse events, or be influenced by external factors. Moreover, witnesses may have biases, prejudices or personal interests that color their perceptions and recollections, resulting in selective or distorted testimony. Another challenge is the suggestibility of witnesses. They can be influenced by leading questions, suggestive interviewing techniques, or external factors such as media coverage, which may contaminate their memories and produce unreliable testimony. Additionally, witnesses may experience stress, trauma or emotional distress, impairing their ability to recall details accurately and leading to inconsistencies in their testimonies. They may perceive and interpret events differently based on their individual perspectives, experiences and cognitive abilities. This subjectivity has resulted in several discrepancies in their testimonies on R. Kelly, particularly in complex or ambiguous situations. Moreover, the passage of time can affect the accuracy of witness testimonies, as memories may fade or become distorted over time. During cross-examination and appeal, R. Kelly lawyers challenged the credibility, accuracy and reliability of witness testimonies. Jennifer Bonjean was able to uncover inconsistencies, contradictions and weaknesses that undermine their persuasiveness. As we continue to witness new developments occurring towards R. Kelly's appeal proceedings, we can just stay optimistic that this time around, the relevant truth will be put into consideration. This is the ray of hope that makes us keep our breath and hold. We believe R. Kelly and his legal team will be able to outline all the injustices, misinterpretations of the law, cases of lying and witness tampering that have marred all R. Kelly's legal proceedings, and that the law, truth and justice will this time along prevail. It has been a long wait, and we can't wait any longer to see R. Kelly regain his deserved freedom. Thank you for watching today's video, brought to you by SOS Media. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss any of our videos. Also remember to leave your comment about today's topic in the comment section below.